Hey, my photo peeps. After some emails from a few of you, I decided to go ahead and make a video for chapter 5 exercise, just because the instructions in the book were a little bit hard to follow. So I thought I would just pop on here and do a quick how-to video on that. So I'm gonna share my screen and show you step by step how to get through that chapter 5. Oops. Um, that chapter 5 project. Okay. So here you are in Photoshop, and the premise of this assignment is that someone has come from the future to tell you that you've taken the most amazing photograph, and it's going to change the world. But you need to preserve that file or a set of files that will allow people in the future to be able to print those files, and to be able to print a full color version. And since technology is kind of constantly changing, a file that's saved as a Photoshop document or as a JPEG is probably not going to be readable 400 years in the future. So here's how to get through that assignment. First, you're going to find a photograph that has a good tonal range. You've got nice detail in the highlights and in the shadows and in the midtones. I have chosen a kind of strange photograph here. This was a lighting demo that I was giving at some point. And this is a taxidermy beaver form. And I'm gonna mostly follow the directions that are laid out in the book, but I'm gonna go rogue just a little bit. So the first thing that I like to do when I open an image in Photoshop is I like to check the image size. So I'm gonna go to Image and Image Size. And because this is something that I'm eventually gonna print out, I wanna make sure that the resolution is 32. I mean, not 32, 300. So straight out of my camera, my resolution is 72, but you'll see that the physical dimensions are quite large. I want to make sure that all three of these things are linked right here. If they are not linked, like this, where it's just the height and width linked, then you want to uncheck this resample image and change your resolution to 300. That's not something that's laid out in this exercise per se, but I'm doing it out of habit and because this is how I work with my images. So you can choose to do this or not. And I'm gonna say okay. Now, going to the instructions in the book, the next thing to do is to change the canvas size. It's in the same menu under Image and Canvas Size. And it doesn't give you a specific amount to change your canvas size to. So I'm just going to go ahead and add just about 2 inches to the width of my canvas. So I'm going to make the width 10 inches. And here, because I want the white space to wind up on the left of my canvas, I'm going to click here to move that little dot over, indicating that the extension to the canvas will occur on the left. I want to make sure that the canvas extension color is white. If it doesn't say white here, then scroll through and find white and say okay. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out a gradient in this white space that I've just created. I'm going to use my rectangular marquee tool. And I'm going to draw a box around the white space to get these marching ants. The marching ants symbolize a selection, just like if you were to highlight something in a Word document. Then, pretend like that wasn't there. Then I'm going to come down here to the gradient tool. The gradient tool is about halfway down on your toolbar, and it may be underneath the paint bucket. You might have to click on that and hold, but we're looking for the gradient tool. And then the options that you want to change up here in your sub menu are, you want to make sure that this thing is set to foreground to background. And you want to make sure that of these options here, that you have this linear gradient chosen. Now the book talks about two other settings to choose here. I don't have those settings, and I have updated my Photoshop, so I don't know where they are. But I don't have them, so I'm not going to do them. If you have those settings, then go ahead and follow those directions as well. Then I'm going to go inside of this rectangle of marching ants, and I'm going to click and drag all the way down to the bottom. And when I let go, it creates that beautiful gradient. From here, I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, and I'm going to choose Posterize. And here's where I'm going to put in those 32 steps. And you'll see over here in my gradient now, it is not a smooth gradient, but it is a stepped gradient. From there, I'm going to deselect, which gets rid of those marching ants. And now the instructions tell us to open up the info window. So you're going to go to Window and scroll down till you find Info. And this info palette pops up over here. The instructions tell you to use the eyedropper tool to scroll over the steps in your gradient, noting the RGB values in your info window. So notice as I move the eyedropper up and down on this gradient, that the RGB values in my info palette are changing. So for example here, the RGB values are all 156. If I go down here, they're all 198. And what we're going to do is we're going to find 6 approximately evenly stepped places in the gradient, and we're going to record that information from the info window. Now, I can actually just come right over here to my text tool or my type tool, and if I hover over any of those steps, it still gives me the same info. So I'm going to go down to the bottom, and hovering, not clicking, just hovering, it's going to give me the information that the R, G, and B value are all 255. So I'm going to click there, and I'm going to type 255. Now, from something I was doing earlier, my type is white. So I'm going to highlight that, and I'm going to change my type color up here in that sub menu. I'm going to change that to black. And I'm also going to scale my font down. So again, up here in the top menu, I have the option to change the font size. Well, 12 might be a little bit small. Oh, that's just right, 18 point, okay. You can also change your font up here. I put it on Arial because that's just a good, basic, generic font. I mean, it's not generic, somebody designed it, but it's a very easy to read font. I've clicked on my Move tool, and I can then use the arrow keys on my keyboard to just put that a little bit more in the middle. You don't have to do that. I'm going to come back over to my Type tool, and I'm going to try and count 6 steps up from that first one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to look at my info window before I click. I see that it's 206, so I'm going to click and I'm going to type 206. Again, Move tool, scooch that over. Go to the Type tool again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My RGB value is 156. Move tool, scooch it over. Type tool, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, shoot. Oh, all right. I can still hover. It's 107. All right, 107. Move tool, scooch. Type tool, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. At this point, black text is going to be hard to read, so I'm going to go back up here to my text color and change that to white. And 57 is my number. And back to the Type tool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that is 8. And your very top one should be 0. You can type a 0 up there if you want to. And these don't look perfectly evenly spaced, but the idea is that this is information for future use. So if someone were to open this file in the future, they would know that this particular value equals 156 in the RGB scale. Okay, from here, we need to flatten all of these layers. So every time you use the Type tool, it creates a new layer. And I want to just squish those all into one. So I'm going to go to Layer, all the way down at the bottom, and Flatten Image. Now you'll see I have just one layer. Now I want to save this as my master file. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to title it Master File. And it doesn't specify what file type to save it as. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this into Chapter 5. And if you read Chapter 4, it was all about keeping things, keeping your database organized. So this is work that I'm doing for Chapter 5. So I'm putting it in the Chapter 5 file. I did some trials earlier and put them in a trials file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this actually as a Photoshop document and as a JPEG, just because I don't know if I'm going to want to use it later or if I'm going to want to, make some other adjustments. When you turn it in as a JPEG. So I'm saving the Photoshop file for no particular reason other than that I might want to go back in and work on it at some point. And I'm going to also save it as a JPEG. And it's going to ask me some questions. You want to save it at the highest quality and save it at baseline standard. And now what we're going to do is we're going to separate the channels. And this is, again, thinking about future use. If we separate the channels, all color prints are made up of 3 main primary colors, and that is cyan, magenta, and yellow. So if we separate out those channels, and we create black and white files, in the future, someone will be able to print those out, layer them up, and have a full color image. So how do you do that? From here, what we're going to do is we are going to go to Window, and we're going to open the Channels palette. And you'll see over here, it takes the place of your Layers palette. It's really in the same palette. It's just on a different tab. And we're going to start by, I can't remember what order they did it in the instructions. We're going to start by deleting the blue layer. So we're going to grab onto that, the blue channel, and we're going to drag the blue channel down into this tiny trash can. From here, we're going to get rid of the magenta channel. So grab onto that, drag it into the trash can. And now this is our cyan file. So we need to save it as that. Now the book asks us to save them as TIFFs. In order to save it as a TIFF, we actually need to change this into a grayscale file. It won't let you do it if you leave it as it is right now. So this was a step that was not laid out clearly in the book. So we're going to go to Image, Mode, and you're going to change that to grayscale. Then you're going to Save As. And this was our cyan layer. So you're going to save it as cyan, and you're going to save it as a TIFF. Make sure you know where it's going. So it's going into chapter 5. Save. For your options here, you don't want any image compression. Leave the pixel order as interleaved and the byte order as IBM PC. Say okay. Now we need to open up that master file again. I guess I'm going to work from the PSD. And my channels are already over here. So now I'm going to get to the yellow. So I'm going to get rid of my green. And then I'm going to get rid of my cyan. And now this will be our yellow file. So again, we need to change that into grayscale and save as yellow. And again, we're saving it as a TIFF, making sure that it's going into my chapter 5 file folder. And one more time, we're going to open up that master file. And now we're going to get that last layer, which is going to be our magenta. So we're going to delete the red channel, and then we're going to delete the yellow channel. And we're going to change that to grayscale and save it as magenta. Chapter 5, good, good, good. Save, save. And that is it. So then you'll upload into Google, you'll upload your master file as a JPEG, and then your 3 channels as TIFFs. So you should have a cyan file, a magenta file, and a yellow file, all saved as TIFFs and uploaded into your Google file folder on the drive. I hope that helps, and I'm excited to see what you do. And of course, as always, you can email me with any questions that you got, and or if you just want to check in and see how things are going. All right, cool. Carry on. Have fun. Bye.